Yes, we have elected liars to public office, and I am shocked. Shocked. I can't believe that happened. Okay. Now, the corporate media belatedly uncovered, actually, the fact that it appears that recently elected New York Congressman George Santos was lying about himself, his history, his heritage, and plenty of other things, it appears. So apparently this was part of his successful effort to get elected. Now, this sucks. It amuses me a little bit, of course, but in all seriousness, it's not fun because nobody likes to reward liars and their lies. Now, before I get into the story, I want to warn you, I will provide some suggestions at the end of this video on what I think you can do to prevent this type of thing from happening so much in the future. And this is all stuff that I believe that we can do. So, of course, the only reason that we're hearing about this so thoroughly from the tame, controlled corporate media right now is because Santos is a Republican. How dare he? The media typically covers up and conveniently forgets the pathological Democrats elected to office, but suddenly discovers that lying is wrong when a Republican does it. Now, seriously, this kind of amuses me because it's so hypocritical. However, more significantly, it does display how much the tame media really sucks at their job. Because, seriously, some of these lies that this Republican congressman told were outed by a local paper months before the election. You can see this article here, and I've linked to it down below. However, since the original journalist was apparently not part of the cool crowd, the story was just ignored. And this is sort of unusual because the guy is a Republican, and but again, I just think that we kind of underappreciate this little insular and groupthink nature of modern corporate journalism. They report what they are told to report, and they pretty much ignore everything else. Major stories land on them every day in their inbox, on their head, to their face, and they typically just ignore them so they can kind of follow the clickbait crowd. Now, there is serious gnashing of teeth and anger because, of course, this lying Republican congressman got elected. But unfortunately, this happens more than people realizes. I just recently did a video just a few weeks ago about the Democrat Washington State legislator Clyde Shavers, who's from the 10th Legislative District up in Island County. And the title of that video was, "What Happens When We Elect Sociopaths to Elected Office?" And, I've linked to it down below as well. But, this is just another case of a politician who decided that their path to political power was so important that they would lie about just about everything in order to win the election. In Representative Clyde Shavers' situation, he lied about being an attorney, his military record was falsified, being a resident of the district, being homeless for a long time, and about being a farmer, and probably a bunch of other things as well. But that was the general gist of his deception. In Shavers' case, his father came forward and exposed him. Otherwise, I don't think anybody would have found out. And that's not typically the way we discover these things. Shavers won his election by just a handful of votes, and that's what made it a little bit more controversial. Now, of course, Representative Shavers has the good fortune of being a Democrat, so the tame media will largely give him a pass on his lies. And I'm sure the Democratic Party is working over their allies in the tame corporate media in Washington State to start putting out puff pieces and soft-pedaling the fact that this young new legislator has zero attachment to reality, honesty, and will literally say anything that he must in order to maintain his political power. It certainly pays to be on the right team. Now, in general, our corporate media will be friendly to politicians who lie about their background as long as they belong to the right political team. This is why they are generally ignored Elizabeth Warren's lying about her native heritage. It was absurd, and many people laughed at it, but that's what they did. They gave a pass to Barack Obama's autobiographical book as being mostly a concoction of this kind of amalgamation of detail, but not always accurate. And of course, they ignore the endless lies told by Biden about his son, his childhood, corn pop, Burisma, 10% to the big guy, Nelson Mandela, what day it is, where he's at. These lies are going to be ignored forever by the corporate media because that's just what they do. Of course, real people, those of us who actually have to endure the damage caused by our feckless and terrible political leadership, we really don't want our politicians to be so full of lies. Doesn't matter what party they're from. And I expect there is a bit of forgiveness for some level of exaggeration if you like the person. But for the most part, average real people would prefer to elect at least somebody up there who's not going to be a sociopathic liar to run government. Now, the question is, what can you do about this to make a difference and reduce the amount of lying sociopaths who actually get into office and hold these offices? Now, first, don't trust and verify. Always distrust and go out and verify. You gotta go out there and make sure that they're telling the truth. If the politician is new on the scene and they haven't been in the public eye, you deserve to check out their background. We know journalists don't do this anymore, and we can't presume that the political opponents will either. Some information is public record. You can actually look up criminal records, court records, military records, and even some employment and educational records. You can do a lot of background online. Just check out their social media history, sometimes even using the Wayback Machine or other tools to see if somebody's been editing or cleaning up their recent backstory. Now, if you believe it has merit and you want to commit an act of journalism, you can even research where the politician claims they lived, and you can visit their neighbors or their former classmates. It isn't hard to find an old school yearbook from high school or a college newspaper. When I first ran for office, I remember the Thurston County Democratic Party they presumed I was lying about going to Columbia, for example. And I made it super easy for them to verify this fact because I was frequently in the Spectator, which was our kind of local school paper, either for my political activism, really annoying the left, or as a result of my cross-country and track running results. So they could see I was there the whole time, and unlike when Barack Obama claimed he went to Columbia, it was impossible to miss the fact that I actually went there. Now, don't presume that someone else is going to do this for you or our community. Now, I believe that our imagination of traditional journalism is largely kind of a dead fantasy that doesn't exist anymore. And most of the people who are paid in these kind of corporate tame journalist positions, they just do what they're told. And they stick to their political team like cheerleaders. They aren't going to look. They're not certainly going to look at somebody that they voted for. So if you presume the political opposition is going to check them out, that certainly can happen, but incompetence has been more common than any of us would normally presume. So I warn you in advance, however, that you're going to have pushback. Just like when I exposed Washington State's Department of Ecology, then they're allowed to toxic waste dump on their property and illegal garbage landfill in their green spaces. And they were really angry that I reported on this. They called me an illegal journalist when I helped some local people expose a politician lying about where they graduated from college. I mean, it does make people angry. The same thing's going to happen to you if you're successful. And yet I think it is all worth the effort. Now, finally, people often say that politicians who lie should be arrested, put in jail, etc. I mean, that's always a response. I mean, this is just not very realistic, I don't believe, and nor is it an outcome that you're really going to want. First, there is the practical fact that if this was the true outcome of political lies, our prisons would be full of politicians and we would have few people left in office anywhere to harm us. Secondly, while I've used examples here of people who openly and boldly lie about obvious things, some statements are shades of gray or less clear, and who is it that defines the lie or the truth? Now, sure, I know that Facebook and Google will load some help from our intelligence agencies, apparently. They're going to be willing to do this. But as we've seen, that road only leads to censorship, suppression, groupthink, and misery. No, I believe that the best solution is to expose the truth. The lies should be exposed. The liars should be forced to respond to the exposure, and the people, your community, all of us, we should be able to judge for ourselves what type of fabulous or sociopaths we elect to public office. Maybe enough people decide they can live with the lie because they like the team and the liar that the liar's on. I mean, they like that team. Others will probably make different political choices. Regardless, it's up to us to expose the truth and make our own decisions because lying is part of the human condition, and people will continue to do this even more if they believe they can get away with it. But exposing the lies, I hope, can reduce the behavior to at least more tolerable levels. The future belongs to those who show up, and I believe these recent lying politicians' stories further reemphasize that not enough of us are showing up to help influence our future. I hope this inspires you to dig a bit deeper and work with others to get the truth out there. Now, if you like this video or you have other suggestions, you think I missed something, please feel free to like, share, or comment below. Thank you again so much for watching.